Hey everybody, welcome to Chris Anderson Comics. I have a very special guest today. I am here with the Mahdi Khene. How you doing, man?
I'm doing wonderful. Better now that I'm talking to you.
Yeah, I tend to brighten people's days. I hear that a lot. I don't hear
Absolutely,
that a lot.
absolutely.
So since you've, I think, literally been on every comics YouTube channel and podcast that possibly could exist, probably on every YouTube channel that exists, like comics or otherwise, at this point, I think, right?
I'm trying. I'm
you,
doing the rounds.
you get around, man. So I was like, oh man, I want Mahdi to come on my channel. so I reached out and you sent me this.
That's right. It made the camera shake. Make it
Holy
shake.
shit, man, you've been busy. So Zuperhero Comics is basically your company, I guess you would
Yeah.
call it. Feels weird calling it a company, doesn't it? Although I guess it
I
is.
mean, it is a company. Yeah. It's
Right, right.
yeah. We're legit.
Yeah, fuck yeah. So how long have you been doing the superhero stuff at this point?
Well, I made my first comic in 2021,
Okay.
July of 2021. I reworked that one in October 2021, and then January 2022 is when I started making them on a regular basis. So
Okay.
I would say consistently since 2022 is
Okay.
when the idea of superhero comics and the whole everything was born, I think.
So like average it out, it's like 3 years, basically, right? 3 to
Something like
4.
that. I
Something
think
like
I'm
that. And
entering
how many
the
books do
fourth
you have
year.
out at this point?
Uh, I don't know, maybe over 30 at this point, something like
Okay.
that.
That's absolutely insane. So basically you're almost cranking out like one a month, like at this point.
Yeah, I think over the year, when you look back, it rounds up to about, some months will have two books, some months will have no books, but usually it's around
Right,
12
right.
at the
When
end
you
of the year.
average it out. So that's like a legit comic book publisher putting out
I mean, yeah,
putting out the book a month. That's insane, because the reason that that's insane is because in indie comics, as a lot of people know, things come out
mm,
very irregularly. If you're going to have
sure,
a series, it's going to come out one issue a year, maybe two if you're
right,
lucky in most cases.
right,
And you just like decided that you were just going to do it. You dove in, you full steam ahead, and are just doing these really awesome, fun books, kicking them out at a regular basis,
mm,
and the likes of which I don't know that I've ever really seen. Like, even
mm,
if you look at, like Michelle Fife is a good analog to what you're doing a bit,
sure,
but even
yeah.
he has like big breaks in between stuff. You're just going, man.
Well, I
And
think
it's Go ahead.
Michelle, he might care a little more about the art than, you know what I mean? I think his is a little more, there's a little more finesse, to his work.
Sure,
Fife,
yours
if
is
you're
more kinetic.
listening.
Right, right. And,
Sure,
and
sure,
and
sure.
that's I think that's true. I mean, so looking at the volume stuff. I mean, I know the first time that I saw your stuff, and probably the first time most people really saw your stuff, was with
Right,
your bootleg Spider-Man,
sure.
when kayfabe kind of gave you some shine with
Yeah,
that bootleg,
yeah.
and from other interviews that I've listened to with you, it was like you weren't really expecting the onslaught of
Not at
success
all.
from that and had to kick it
Not
into
at
high
all.
gear, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you followed it up actually with a
Yeah.
number two, which is amazing. We'll
Yeah.
take a look at that real quick in a second.
Sure.
And then you had already, at that point, you were already starting to do the superhero stuff, right?
Yeah. I had done 6 issues of one series, and I was on the fourth issue of Steel Streets when I took a break from the fourth issue to do bootleg Spider-Man as like a palette cleanser because I was blocked because I had a writer's block on the fourth issue, so I just wanted to do
Uh-huh.
something different.
And
Yeah.
out of that, it started to snowball into like basically building a world around this imaginary New York borough, right?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, initially, the concept of Superhero Comics was that it's been around since the 50s. And
Yeah.
so it's a company that started in 1951, and it's been rivaling Marvel and DC this whole time. Mahdi Madman Khene, my persona, has been, at odds with Stan Lee. We've been competing against each other since day one. It's like, that's the kind of the mythos. And so the way I designed each book, the name of the series is Zuperhero Comics Presents, and
Right.
each title is its own series. It's its own book. Because in my mind, each of these would be a spin-off and have its own continuation after a while. So the vision was that in 5 years' time, I'll have 5 different artists working on 5 different issues, spanning from these individual titles. So that was the concept.
So the sort of like, well, to use the term properly, I guess the sort of kayfabe of it, right, is that it's this like company that's been around since the 50s. You're competing neck and neck with StanLee, and then
Right.
but the crazy thing is, in real life,
Yeah.
you sort of are doing that for real.
Well, no.
I mean, you are in a very short amount of time building a real comic book world, putting out
Sure.
regular comics on a regular basis, and it's amazing. It's something to behold, man. It's just
Thank you.
I'm so impressed.
I mean, it's life imitating art at this point.
What's that?
It's life imitating art at this point. I don't know which one is coming first.
Well, I'm just saying you kind of took it to the next step,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is cool. This is like a sampler that you kind of have that you hand out, and it starts out with these stories from the borough that take place, in the 50s.
Yeah.
This noirish sort of thing that you have going on, this black, white, and red story, right?
Right. Funny enough, the concept of all this was each issue was supposed to be a different genre.
Okay.
And so you had, this one was the noir one, then you had a horror comic, wacky sci-fi, underground. Each one was a different genre, because when I started making comics, I went to a comic book shop and I asked them for advice. I was like, I'm new to the medium. What do you think is good for a cartoonist to kind of, and he told me, just make one of each book. He's like, do a cowboy story, do this, just so that you see what you like. And when I went home, I was like, that's a great idea to just do that actually for all the comics,
Yeah.
And this sampler came out because by the time people got to know sort of who I was, there was a big chunk of work behind it. And so I was like, let me just run it down so that people can, in 20 pages, understand the whole concept and then kind of dive in without being too like, where do I start with this?
Yeah.
That was kind of the idea.
Well, and also, like, because you are bouncing around from genre and all that stuff and playing with it, and it may have started out with, well, I'm going to see what I like, but then at the other positive about it is that you as a creator don't get bored.
Oh, right? Exactly. Yeah.
You can play around with all sorts of different things.
Absolutely.
And once you find whatever the hook is that you really love, and there will be multiple ones of them, then you can kind of dive in and start to perfect it.
Yeah.
Because then you jump right into like this Tales from the Cosmos book that you have, right?
Yeah.
And so that's like space and sci-fi, and again, sort of set in the 50s, right?
Exactly. But, yeah, that one's in the 50s. And then this was and then the 60s.
The 60s, right? And then you move on to sort of I don't know what genre you'd even call this. This is sort of like horror sci-fi together.
Yeah. Kind of EC, yeah.
Yeah. Sort of. And then you get into space punks, and then we get into Steel Streets, which is probably outside of the bootleg Spider-Man. Steel Streets is your mainstay, right? This is your go-to #1 story that you kind of work in. And then you got the Zuperhero, the Z comics, right?
Yeah, exactly.
and it's just growing and building. And I love these like photos from
Yeah, right.
from the beginnings of the company, right?
Exactly. The stress that came with it.
And
But
then you just have this fake borough over here. It's just amazing. This like little island
yeah,
off of Manhattan, right?
exactly.
That's so cool. It's just a great concept from the top down. So I don't know
Thank
what
you.
order any of these came out with, but I just kind of put them in this sort of order to do a little flip through, because
Yeah.
this is the Zuperhero Presents. And was that like the first kind of title that you went with?
Yeah, so I had done 5 issues of this one before I ever did Steel Streets. And Steel Streets it started off as just a zine. And I wasn't even planning on, because at that time I was watching a lot of cartoonist kayfabe, and Jim Rugg was talking about zine making, and
Yeah.
in my mind I was like, wait, you can just make little short stories that don't have anything to do with anything, and it's just a fun little thing. And so it was Bootleg Spider-Man was an example of that, and then Steel Streets was supposed to be an example of that. But when I made it, I got really, I kind of fell in love with the character, and so then I kept it going, and now I'm working
Right.
on the 10th issue. So it's kind of it was an accidental thing. I just fell in love with it, and then I still I kind of focused on that for a while, but then I remembered I had this whole other series,
Yeah.
and then they were supposed to be separate, but I had the idea of combining them in a way that could be so you can read one or the other, which I have fans that are just Steel Streets people
Of
and
course.
others that are
Yeah.
just Superhero Comics Presents people. And I find it funny that they don't, because it's done in a way that you don't have to. But if you start
Sure.
noticing things, then you start to be like, for example, on this page you're on, that character Hank, he's from Steel Streets,
Right.
but he has his own life also in this universe. So it's kind of that idea of, I mean, it's kind of the old idea of Stan Lee, having Daredevil or Spider-Man swing behind. It's a shared universe. I wanted to bring back that aspect of it,
Absolutely.
and that it should
Yeah.
all crescendo into one big thing.
Yeah. It's like having somebody who's like, I only read X-Men. I don't read
Exactly.
anything else.
Yeah.
So I have no
Yeah.
idea what's going on over in the Avengers. But then the Avengers show up in the X-Men, and you have
Yeah. Exactly.
it's all taking place in Hell's Bed.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when did you do this issue?
It's hard to. If you turn to the indie ship, like the first page there, it
Yeah,
should say,
almost
was
everything
it?
I think says 2024 in what you sent
Right.
me, I
So
think.
this one was April, 2024.
Oh,
So
so
that's
the
kind of
indie
the
ship
thing.
here is up to date. Oh yeah, because it's first printing too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
okay.
So these are, the title, the corner box is actually to tell you when the story takes place. It's extremely meta.
Yeah.
So this one takes place in February 1987. And for example, issue 9 of Steel Streets takes place, I think, around the same time. Oh, it's actually right there. Yeah. If you look
It's
at
right
that
here.
one,
Yep.
it's
November.
November 1980. So it takes place a couple months after that. And then there's another book that I released called The Radicals. I don't know if I sent you that one, but
I think so. Yep. Yep.
yeah, so that one takes place in September 1987. And so it's kind of, it follows this whole longer timeline.
Right.
So the corner
So
box dictates
so
the
just
time period.
from the corner boxes, you can read these and know that this is the 1987 superhero universe.
Exactly, yeah. And also that the stories are intertwined within that timeline.
That is
So
amazing. And that's something really cool that I hadn't noticed that until you just explained that.
I mean, let
And so
me get something real quick.
Sure. Yeah.
Just to show you the things that at a certain point you kind of have to bring the timeline and kind of bring it all, you have to get it sort of, so each one is, so you have all these different timelines and all these different storylines that all coming together, and then you just have events like 1932, Hellsbed, New York, Marissa Franzoni is born, the mother of Francine. So you got to keep it all straight somehow. That's why I'm Mahdi Madman Khene,
Yeah, exactly. I can just see like on the other side of the camera here, you've got those like strings, like
Exactly.
where and like
Exactly. Exactly. Pure madness. Pure madness.
Yeah, so this is some examples of like your earlier work, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think this is probably the earliest one that you sent me.
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you can see in the beginning here, your style is looser, and
Yeah.
you're trying a lot of stuff out.
Yeah.
And as you kind of go, so this is like Steel Streets 1, and then we get to the latest issue. You're working on 10 right now, but this is 9.
Yeah.
You've tightened it up, and so you can just tell that you're getting better and you're learning the craft just through going full steam ahead with this stuff.
Yeah, I think there was a moment where I realized that most people, they stop themselves from doing stuff because they wait until they're good enough, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't have, I'm lucky that I don't have that kind of inhibition, where I didn't mind learning on the page. And in my mind, these are stories, and the art lends itself to the story. So if you can communicate, then it's okay. And I figured that as I keep going, as I keep on practicing the craft, my storytelling will improve, because I will want to tell more things. I want to communicate differently. I want to express things differently. And so the art just ends up, expressing that. Yeah, I mean, if you see the first and the last one is it's night and day, sort of. This the whole different, it doesn't seem like the same artist, I think. It does and it doesn't.
It does and it doesn't. I mean, you're in there, but you're refining things, and there's I think that you learned how to like balance out your textures and things like that to have more clarity in the images, and
absolutely,
so you are learning along the way. You can tell that you're talking to other creators, and you're listening to people, and you're learning things along the way, and growing as an artist, and as a writer at the same time.
Sure.
It's the right way to. I think it's the right way to do it. There's there's, like you said, people tend to wait until they get good before they even put anything out, and they instead of doing that, lay yourself bare, put it all out, grow as you go. I mean, if you look at the stuff that I did just a few years ago, it looks like a completely different artist, and I'm embarrassed by it at this point. Other people might not see it, but I do. And it's just, as a creator, that's your job, sort of, a little bit, is to recognize the things that didn't work last time, say, fuck it, I'm moving on, and learn from it and grow,
Absolutely. And also, when you realize that, for example, how you personally react to people's art is similar to how people react to yours, where people are genuinely kind and gracious and open-minded and all these things. And somehow artists, we tend to think that the worst thing will happen is that we'll get, whatever. But the truth of the matter is that it's very rare that someone will openly demolish you because of something that you did in terms of your art, in terms of the quality of your art or whatever. So I think as long as artists kind of treat themselves a little nicer, with a little more grace in terms of what they're allowed to do, quote unquote, then I think that's when your art it becomes free, And when you free your art, that's when you can flourish, what I mean?
That's exactly right, man. You nailed it right on the head.
Yeah.
What are you using to? Oh, well, go ahead. What were you saying?
No, please continue.
Oh, what are you using? What are the tools that you're using for the pages?
Mostly just
anything, or?
Yeah, sort of. I have a whole array of just nibs and brushes and like you can see splatter, toothbrush for texture.
Yeah.
A lot of that. A lot of just roller pens. I'm not big on concerning myself with archival quality, so I just kind of use whatever I think will get me a good little texture, and then just digital tones. I make some myself, or you scan in things. Like that is just exactly all
like
that
cardboard
is just
or something, right?
Exactly, exactly. And you just kind of do it, gray it out, make the brush. But a lot of it is just splatter and, you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah, even your tones have changed since the first one. You're using different probably methods because this one you sort of it feels like
I use one.
yeah, yeah. And then I
I
had a copy of maybe it was two or something, Steel Streets 2 or something like that. I think you
hmm,
started using like a digital duotone, right?
exactly. Yeah. For this
Yep.
one, I had scanned in a piece of Letratone that I
Yes.
gotten off eBay, and then
Which
I
is the
just made
vertical one. Yeah, and you twisted it, it turned it to the side or something.
exactly. I just not even. I think it's just straight up and down,
These ones are
or some of
diagonal.
them. I didn't
Yeah.
even know what I was doing. I was just, you
Yeah.
know what I mean. I was just turning the pages, going like, okay, because I had no idea. I just learned about. Yeah, exactly.
Yep, and chipping it off.
And then yeah, and then what happened was when I did this one, it was right after I think I had learned about the comic boom, black and white boom of 1986, and that's
Yep.
why this comic is dated 1986. Because a lot of times I hear about things that happened before, and I was like, I want to play, I want to
I hear you.
participate in that thing, and so I'm just like,
Yep.
you know what? Here, now it's there. Now I did it. I participated in the black and white boom of 1986. I can move on now. But
Yep.
then people started telling me, it's like, oh, it reminds me of this and that. And I thought, oh, it would be great to actually homage the Ninja Turtles with this character and all these things. And so the second issue, which is a continuation of the first issue, is just actually a I wanted to carry the torch, so to speak,
Yeah.
where Daredevil and Ronin to the Ninja Turtle guys, and then
Yeah.
to me. I kind of took it on my own, but then
Yeah. Is that where you introduced the plank? Is that, or was that in this
that
issue?
that's issue two.
That is issue 2. Yeah, that was
That's issue
great.
two. Yeah, 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 yeah. Master Plank
Where he
instead of
thinks that
Master
he's just talking
Splinter.
to this guy in the sewer, and then it turns out it's literally a couple pieces of wood.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
just
then
making myself laugh.
you went to a different tone in here, so you just kind of you're using a couple different tones in here. And then yeah, like
Yeah,
you said, you're scanning some things in. I do the same thing. I have like when friends go to Japan, I'll have
right.
them. There's only so many tones that you can
Sure,
get here,
sure, sure,
but
sure.
there it's everything. So I have people who like they don't know anything about art or comics, and they're just like
Sure,
friends that are going on their honeymoon to Japan, and I'll be like,
sure,
hey,
sure,
while you're
sure.
there, we pop into a shop and just like
Yeah,
grab a
the
bunch of
the romantic deleter
Retro
shop.
set or whatever, and then
Yeah.
they'll come back and I'll get the wildest, weirdest stuff because they don't know. And
Right.
then
Oh, nice.
yeah, I scan it in like high res,
Right.
and then I never have to actually I'll use it on like commissions and things like that.
Sure, 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 sure.
But then I never actually have to waste it if I don't
Right,
want to, and I can use it on everything. And then yeah,
right.
I just use like a what kind of brush is it called? It's like a rake. I'll use a rake brush
Oh, wow. Okay.
and then turn it on to clear, and that's how I'll start to do the chipping away of it. It gives it this like
You see,
quality
I'm gonna.
where it looks like it's done traditionally, and it's
Yeah,
still
yeah, yeah,
because you scanned it in and it's not perfect anyway.
yeah,
But then when
yeah,
you scan it in too, it's if there's a little warp, it's got a warp. It's
yeah.
just it looks great.
But absolutely, and I think people give a bad rap sometimes to digital versus practical and stuff like that. And I'm like, it's in your hands. That's your style.
It
So it
is.
it shouldn't change. I sometimes in the earlier issues I would splice practical and digital like page by page sometimes
Mm-hmm.
because I was working full time at a cafe, and so I needed to maximize my time. And so when I was home and I could enjoy myself, then I'd have my paper and I would do it. But sometimes I'd have my iPad at work. In between espressos, I would be drawing my panels, and so, some issues, like issue three, I think, of Steel Streets, you have 2 pages that are practical, 1 page that's digital, 1 page is half digital, half practical. So it's just, but no one could see the difference because it was still my hand. I would still try to
Right.
replicate because what I like is what I like. And so it would translate. And so the same with that, the raking off the white, so it looks like the razor blade, which is just the same as using the razor blade.
Yeah.
That's, I've already stolen that idea, Chris.
No, it's not stealing. It's
Yeah,
just it's learning from each other.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's that's what we have to do. We don't have
yeah.
back in the day. There was the bullpen,
Right.
or whatever, and somebody would take you under your wing, like
Hmm.
Chaikin to Gil Kane, or
Right.
Dan Panosian to Neil Adams. Like they
Right.
learned by sitting next to these guys and helping them get the pages out.
Sure.
And we don't have that anymore.
That's true.
We don't
That's true.
have somebody that we're sitting in the same room with to learn with. We
Right.
don't have
That's true.
mentors like that. I mean, a little
That's true.
bit. Like I definitely have. Drink and Draw was great for me to be able to go once a week and sit next to these guys and show them my pages and have them
Right.
stuff,
Right.
like the original Drink and Draw. But
Sure.
we don't have that anymore, so we just have to kind of like we can't
Yeah.
keep our trade secrets.
No, of course not. Of course not.
We got to share. We got to help each other grow.
Yeah,
and
I always say it's
one of the best parts of this industry, is that we're all willing to do that.
absolutely. I always say it's not a competition, it's a collaboration. We're all here just trying to have a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of collaborations, so
Oh yeah.
You work a couple of times with Jonathan Marks Baravecchio, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've done I think 3 books together now.
And the first time I saw his work was his image book of Help Me.
Bear Pirate Viking Queen.
That's it. That's it.
Johnny, if you're listening, Bear Pirate Viking Queen. People got to get it right.
I know. No, I think and actually, I think the trouble with remembering it actually helps people to remember it.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
It's
for
that
sure.
weird sort of thing. Like, I don't know how old you are, but I was old enough to remember, like, being old enough to remembering the first time people in the world started hearing the words Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Sure.
It was impossible to remember in the very beginning.
Oh, funny.
It was such a weird thing to say.
Right.
And now, of course, it's,
it's ubiquitous.
It's part of our vernacular,
Yeah.
But like sometimes things like that help.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
It's like the Cars for Kids commercial or something, It's
oh my God,
that people are talking about.
That's true.
So his stuff is nuts. It's really, really, kinetic.
Yeah,
so it matches the energy that you bring to your work too.
Yeah,
just totally different style. So you're also, with Zuperhero Comics, you're collaborating.
Big time. That was part of the idea as well. I wanted to. Now on the Zuperhero website, there's a section called the Bullpen, where I mention all the people that I've worked with and everything. And I like to work with artists that I think that will fit well. I think that inspire me. Like there, for example, is Jamie Jones doing a short. And it's just also I like eclectic stuff. So I'm not really bound by genre and everything. And I like to write stories. Every time I have an artist that comes on, my first question is always, what kind of stuff do you want to draw? Like what makes you happy? Like what are we doing here? And then we talk about it, and then I come up with a story because I have a whole universe now to fall back on. So I'm just kind of like, you know what? We can just do whatever we want. There's no rules, no problem. And
exactly.
Yeah.
And you've got I'm trying to find the ad for the latest one that you just collaborated on.
With Anya Driffel?
Yes.
Yeah, I have it right here.
So much going on here.
Yeah.
There, you got it right there. Let's see.
Yeah, I got the issue. Because it wasn't out by the time when I sent it to you. Yeah, Anya, the Dreamer Driffel, and we collaborated on this book called Creep, Sneak, Kill, where I met Anya, I think at Baltimore Comic Con, and we traded some books. She gave me some zines, and I saw her again at Heroes Con. And I always loved her style, the way her drawing sensibility, And we became friends, and we talked. And she was like, "I want to do basically an X-Men book," and I was like, "Done. Give me a week. Let me think of a story." And I thought of this team book and everything, but I drew them like this. This was my vision for it.
Right.
So I had a story and I drew them in this way, and then she came back with this, And then we rapped about it. She was like, yeah, maybe they could be younger. And I'm like, 100%. Let's make them younger. Let's put them in school. Let's see what happens. And then it created this wonderful book where I colored it in a very kind of retro way.
Yep.
But Anya's line work shines. And that's also something I like to do. I always want to make I always want to make them shine, you know?
Yeah.
So I try to just.
You're even coloring things to see, you got this almost like a risograph kind of thing, you know, on some of the pages. And
I want
pastel-y kind of thing, you know, because the kids, they're younger and it's brighter. Yeah.
Because I think every part of the story is, you know, it's immersive. You want to be lost in the whole thing. So that's with the colors, that's with everything.
Right.
Same with like the Radicals. It was a whole different color scheme. You see, it's a lot more, you know, you have to kind of adapt
more
to what
primary.
you're trying to say. Right. Exactly, yeah. Because it's just an old school limited palette superhero book, you know.
Yeah, you'll have stuff that's sort of more neon. This one is sort of, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
The latest thing I did, the Chimera Chronicles, I think that last book underneath
it's here.
That one right there, yeah.
There it is.
So this book was to go back to the idea of keeping things fresh for yourself and keeping things new. I thought of this concept. I've always wanted to do these kinds of stories. This is a World War II story.
Yeah.
But with my characters, and I was like, ooh, maybe we could do kind of like what ifs and stuff like that. So I thought of this concept, the Chimera Chronicles, so that I can throw the cast of whatever book I'm doing and kind of just little short stories that reimagine them in different scenarios. And they can have different names, they can have different backstories and all these things. But in the end, it's all, you know, it's the same character. So people know them, people recognize them and they like them, but then it's this whole thing. So this one was in color. It was a whole different kind of an old school sensibility. Like his catchphrase, it's time to pay scum. But because it's World War II, it's time to pay Nazi scum. You know, so it's like this whole thing. You know, so it's subtle stuff.
Yeah.
But even the style, I wanted to draw it in a different way and kind of, you know, just different. And I got Koi Fam to do a pinup in that one. Look at that. Beautiful.
That's insane.
Beautiful stuff. Yeah, just gorgeous.
You also play around with, you know, format, because some of them, you know, are magazine size, while some of them are, you know, you've got even like just a couple different zine sizes when you know, this is like the LP kind of thing, or
exactly.
You know, and then you got the zine sizes, and then you have magazine size stuff. So you're messing around with all sorts of stuff, even style here, like.
Yeah, I went for a Hergé bande dessinée style in this one.
Yep, I can feel it.
Yeah, just because I wanted to. It's kind of whenever I approach a story or I think about what to do, the last thing I want to do is feel like I'm forcing something.
Yeah.
You know? Because that's why I don't do Steel Streets monthly, because I feel like if I felt like I had to keep going with Steel Streets, then I would lose the love I have for that book.
Yeah.
So the books don't come out frequently in terms of, you know, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I keep doing other books in between to keep myself fresh and happy and excited about the medium. So this one, I did The Adventures of Clive Danger. It was just a one-off spy story to kind of, you know, cleanse the palette. I did it in a clear line I lettered the whole book by hand just to try out different things, you know. Keeps you.
So, I actually didn't notice that you had lettered it by hand. That's really awesome. How did you find that? How did that feel?
Well, the impetus of this book, I'm remembering now, is because I wanted to get better at lettering. And so I thought to myself, to get better at lettering, I should just letter a whole comic.
Yeah.
And so I decided to just make a comic that I could letter to have that happen. I tend to do that a lot. I'm doing that kind of with the Light Man. Is I'm learning Italian and I want to get better at it quicker. So I'm like, I'll just write a book in Italian, because that's just, for me, it's like, I feel like if I force it, then it will just happen, you know?
Right.
But lettering, I kind of liked it. It's a little frustrating at times. The Ames lettering guide, every page is a little time consuming, but I found it to be, I don't know, I really liked it. I thought it was nice.
Are you lettering directly on the page?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not brave enough to do that. I've been doing all my lettering, my hand lettering on a separate page and then dropping it in.
Interesting. I mean,
Because I
that
always find that no matter what, once I back off from my lettering, I'll have some words that are just too close to each other, or just like this, my spacing is never right. It feels right when I'm on top of it, but then when I shrink it down, it's not right. So I have to do some adjusting anyway. So I was like, why don't I just add it afterwards?
You're a smarter man than I am, because I have the same feelings, except I just sit with the feeling and I'm like, oh, well, I guess the page is gonna be turned anyway. It's fine. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it moving.
You decided to do even bootleg Spider-Man 2 is a completely different size than the other ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I decided to do another.
The original one was sort of zine size, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was 5.5 by 8.5 or whatever that is.
This one's a lot of fun because you pull in a sort of Batman analog kind of character.
Absolutely. But this was my, because I did bootleg Spider-Man, and then for a long time people kept asking for, like, can we get another bootleg? Can we get another? They wanted it, and I obliged, and I did. And the ending should tell you if there are any more coming or not.
Right.
But it's just kind of, you're
gonna have to buy it and find out, everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. And this one too was another palette cleanser.
So this one feels more like your like 60s, 70s undergroundy, heavy metal-esque kind of story.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of fun too. And
I had just gotten.
You got a friggin' murder's row of pinup artists for this one too.
Are you kidding me? I mean, the first right off the bat, Jim Rugg.
Yep.
Yeah, Beverly Salas.
Yeah.
Jim Mahfood. I mean, yeah. You got Mark Jackson. You got Brandon Graham. It's
insane.
No, it's a lucky thing.
Yeah, that's got to feel pretty good, man. I mean, so what made you decide to even want to just start doing this? And because it sounds like, just a couple years ago, in the scheme of things, you walked into a shop and said, hey, what do I got to do to do this?
Yeah.
What do I need to know to do this? It doesn't sound like you've been like, scheming and working in the shadows for years. You just kind of went, I'm going to do this, and went zoom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, zoom with a Z. I was pursuing music before. So I was a musician. Well, I still am, I guess. But I was gigging in New York. I was putting out albums, self-producing them and going all around. But for the longest time, from 2006 to 2016, I lived in Europe. I was in Paris and Spain, Germany for a little while, and I was doing music the whole time there. I was just kind of figuring things out, whatever. And then after COVID happened, and all the gigs kind of disappeared from under me, and so I was kind of just left. I was working at a coffee shop again, the one I had been working with the whole time that I was in New York, and I just decided. I was watching Smallville. And for some reason, I remembered that I used to love comic books, and I used to read them all the time. And I used to read bande dessinées when I was a kid, and I used to have a good time with it. And it just dawned on me, I was like, why don't I make my own superhero? That was it. And then I just went to my thing, and I just drew a thing, and I did Zuperhero because it's like opposite, I guess. SZ, I don't know. Sure. Literally, that's just where it came from. And then I needed a hobby, so I just started doing it, and it was terrible. It wasn't good. And I was like, you know what? Maybe could I try to sell these? I don't know. So I printed 50 of them, and I gave them out to kind of get some feedback. And then people were very kind, being like, oh, it's pretty good. I'm just like, oh, thanks. So I went to the comic shops, and they were like, nope, we're not carrying this. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I reworked it, went back, and then they were like, fine, we'll carry it, but it never sold. So then I went back, got them all again, reworked it again, dropped them off again, and then one or two sold. That's when I knew I was on kind of a right path. And so then I kept going down that path. But honestly, it was just a random night. I just
Most people
decided
would
to.
have stopped after. I think most people would have stopped after it didn't sell that first time, and I think that that's interesting. That coming back, that saying, "I'm going to rework it, figure this out, and come back,"
Right.
and then incrementally just start doing it. You and I have a very, very similar story because
Really.
I'm a musician too. I toured for like a while and
Oh,
had a
no.
whole period of like 10 years where and I had like a fiance in England,
man.
so I'd go back and forth from there, during that period, and was just like, recording my own albums and
Oh, wow.
doing small things. Mostly, and I didn't really tour much, but here and there. But like had a lot of residencies here in Los Angeles, which is my home base and stuff like that. And I also kind of like, I could never not have just like a day job. I had to be able to pay my rent,
For sure. Yes,
and sometimes just playing gigs and stuff wasn't going to guarantee that I could pay it that month. So I was a teacher on top of it, like a school teacher on top of it. And yeah, like it was about 10 years where I didn't really draw much. I didn't read comics or anything like that. And then it just all of a sudden it came back with a like a tidal wave.
Right.
And, next thing I know, I'm doing this full time.
Yeah, I don't know how it happens. It just kind of.
There is something to there is a definite, I think, link between music and writing and drawing comics.
Oh yeah,
they're very, very similar. If you're doing it, if you're doing it right, it's gonna have this sort of structure and melody to it and a crescendo and everything that music has, in each issue. Right. If you can break down your issues visually and in the writing that way, you're gonna suck people in just the same way that people get sucked into a really good song.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's why you'll find like there's a lot of comic creators that are also musicians.
I mean, it's storytelling. We're all trying to tell the same story through music, through poetry, through literature, through. I think I was talking to like Jamie Jones and Matt Sardo about this, where it's just storytelling. I think is the through line between all art mediums.
Yeah, I think that you're right about that, but I think I would add to that there is the structure of melody, which isn't necessarily a story. It is guiding your emotions.
Sure, it's the vehicle.
It is also works through it in a visual way too. That it's pleasing to people, and if visually everything is choppy from one section to the next, you're going to lose people. But if it flows,
for sure.
And if something's funky in the story in the storytelling, and then it repeats again, it's all good.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that was my thing. If I do a guitar solo, if I fucked up a note, I would just repeat it. And now I'm playing jazz, baby. That's it. I'm a
Melodious monk, baby.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, okay. I think we on a separate note, we have to jam at some point. So
I think we do, man.
I'm gonna start bringing my guitar to the conventions.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, all right, let's do it. Yeah, okay, we're gonna have the fucking indie comic jam band of the century.
Yeah, please come on.
We're drummers? I don't know if there's any drummers.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, drummers and bassists are hard. I'll play bass. I can play bass. I don't mind being. I don't mind.
I mean, I can keep a rhythm, but I ain't a drummer.
Sure. I don't mind being in the pocket. I'm not a showman.
Okay.
I think though, maybe for comic book people, it might be hard to find a front man. I think that's
right.
We're all in the shadows. We don't want to.
Yeah. They're either all in the shadows or all want to be on the mic. So it's like,
exactly. Yeah. That's so funny.
Cool. Well, I mean, we can wrap up this portion of the of the interview before we go on to the second half that will come out. Yeah. But I want to point this one out, man. This one for some reason really friggin' spoke to me.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's just my sensibilities. It's really weird. This guy is so friggin' goofy. Yeah. He's like a Spider-Man-ish character, but he's not really likable at all.
No, he's the worst.
I like that. I like
Yeah,
characters
yeah,
that
yeah,
aren't likable. And he's
yeah.
just weird looking. Like, and he's like, Dingus is dangling. I just like,
Yeah,
dude,
it's
this thing
just
is
there.
so bizarre. this one spoke to me a lot.
This one
So,
is. It's actually go back to 2 pages, 3 pages. One more. Yeah. So if you see in that page, no, one page, one more
this
page.
one?
Yeah, not the splash page, but the other one. I use
Yeah.
his penis as a directional device to the next panel.
Yes, I see that.
You know, it's called craft,
Yeah.
people. It's called craft.
Crap. That's right. Yeah, so you're thinking, I mean, obviously you're thinking about that too. What do you, let me ask you this. When you're laying out a page, you know, obviously it's different for at what point of the story it is, but like what's going through your head when you're laying stuff out?
I'm one of those people. I don't thumbnail, and I don't really think about it. I just start at the top right corner or top left corner, and then I
And you
just
go.
yeah. Like for example, I was doing a page yesterday, a Steel Streets page, where I ruled out and I just drew random panels, drew 6 panels in a random way, and then just started filling them out. You know, I just kind of I say that I Marvel method myself, where I have an
Okay.
idea of what I want, but then I just start, and then I write as I am drawing, but I don't think about it, and then I just hope
Right.
it flows. You know,
Right.
that's
So
kind
like
of
the
the
other Mahdi is kind of like telling you what to do and you're not, but you're not like really listening to it.
100. Yeah, exactly. I'm my own boss, but I run a loose ship. You know, so I'm just kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly
You
right.
don't ever
So
find that, and you do that with writing too, right? Kind of like you just kind of go.
yeah, I mean, I don't write before an issue. I don't write my issues out
Yeah. And you never find that you've like painted yourself into a corner or anything like that, or do you find
all
that
the
that's
time.
like half the fun of it is like painting yourself into a corner a little bit and then figuring something weird out to get yourself out of it?
Exactly. I in my mind, if I don't know where the story's going, the reader won't know where the story's going.
Yeah.
And so it makes for kind of an entertaining read because there's always going to be random things that happen. And my favorite thing to do when I'm nearing the end of an issue, to kind of be like, all right, how the fuck am I going to think this? Like, how is this going to work? And then I don't know. That's when I come alive a little bit, you know.
Sure.
But
Yeah, that starts
yeah,
firing your engines. No, I totally
exactly.
get that.
Yeah,
I completely get that. I've worked that way. I've worked all. Listen, at this point, I've worked every single way that you can possibly work.
sure.
You know, especially when I first started out, I was just that same way, just go. And after a couple of times, I was like, well, maybe I can just try a little bit differently and
Right.
you know, think about it more, like rework it, do it,
Right.
you know, 5 times and see how it comes out. And
Right.
there's to varying degrees of success. I'll say that.
Sure. Of
To where
course.
I
Yeah.
still haven't found one way that I'm going to be like, this is how you do it.
Right.
You know,
But I don't think that exists.
you know what? I don't think it exists either. But there's
Yeah.
plenty of people that you will talk to along the way that'll say, no. This is the way that you do it. And if you do it any other way, it's wrong. And
Yeah. But,
I completely disagree with that. I think you can
yeah.
massively fail no matter what way you do it.
Sure.
You know, it just depends on what's called for at the moment and what the story is. So, you know,
I think as long as whatever happens between the cover and the back cover is entertaining and good and like feels whatever, then there's no such thing as failing. If you're communicating something and the other person, the reader, gets that, then you did it. Not every story has a fucking B plot, C plot, and then the climax and then the epilogue or whatever. No, some songs. Listen to Desolation Row. You know what I mean? Some songs, it's okay. I think anything that happens between in the book itself, people will find a through line because that's how we approach life. We make narratives out of chaos. And so if you're able to at least hone in on that chaos and kind of bring it to something, then it's all good, you know?
you're speaking my language, Marty.
Yeah, it's gotta be free. You gotta be free in your expression and just kind of when people say you have to do things one way or another, I pity those people because it's just like it's them expressing their own insecurity towards something. And I respond with open arms because I'm like, you know what? That's fine. I'll try it your way. Why not? I have no
Yeah.
problem with it. No problem
Yeah.
with it. You know? And
So
that's
if
when
you
you
like
meet
it.
all the exactly, yeah. Like Jamie Jones and I, we work very differently, and yet we
Yeah.
both use each other's scripts to do in each other's books.
Hmm.
My scripts are loose. I send him a song to listen to, and I said, page one, this and this happens, and they end up here. And then the rest is up to him, how he wants to lay it out, how he wants it to flow. Because in my mind, when I get it back, I'm just gonna start plugging in things, and I'm gonna let the characters kind of tell me what they're saying.
Yeah.
Jamie sent me layouts,
You
which
went
I've never
Kurtzman method.
exactly. He went full Kurtzman. And I remember I struggled with that because at the beginning I was just kind of like, oh, and I didn't know, can I deviate? Can I this? Can I that? Can I this? And then I asked him, I said, dude, do you mind if I just kind of, change the thing? He's like, oh yeah, that's just how I write. How you draw is different. So you do whatever you think is best because you're the artist. And I was like, I get it. And immediately then I felt like I was in the 40s just drawing, like being an artist. You know what I mean? I felt like I was in Mad Magazine. So when you open yourself up to different ideas and you adapt it to your own sensibilities, that's when things flourish and the pages turned out great. I
Yeah.
think
So
anyway.
he did a half Kurtzman then. It's called a
Yeah,
half
exactly.
Kurtzman.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
in the industry, it's called a half
Yeah,
Kurtzman.
it's a curtsy, if you could
Yeah,
say.
curtsy. I love it.
Uh,
Awesome. So you got a Patreon that you are
I do.
rocking and rolling on.
I
How's
do.
that going?
It's going good. Yeah, I try to keep up with it. I'm a little
Yeah.
technologically challenged, but I try to make it, fun. And I just sent out actually today some pins of for Patreon members. But yeah,
Awesome.
I try to post some process stuff, little sneak peeks, little, what people on Patreon do, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you send out the books to people, or do the people that are members of the Patreon still go and buy the books and all that stuff?
People still buy the books, but sometimes I will, I'll say I'll announce a release, but then I'll go on the Patreon and say, don't buy this one, guys. It's
Oh, okay,
on
gotcha.
old Mahdi, something like
Right
that.
on. Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
normally it's
Uncle
like,
Marty's gonna send you a
yeah, I got a
treat.
little, little surprise for you. But sometimes it's just little, prints or sketches and stuff like that. Sometimes zines that will come out.
That's a great
Yeah,
idea. Yeah,
I'm
that's
trying
really
to figure
awesome,
out
man.
how to build it up and how to make it fun. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So where do people find you on the rest of the webs?
Zuperherocomics.com is the publisher where you can get all the books until the 28th of this month. If you spend $50 or more, you get $5 off. Oh, how
Whoa.
generous! How generous are we? And then, otherwise, it's at Mahdi Khene on Instagram and Facebook. There's a Discord now that I started called Zuperhero Comics, which I have no idea what I'm doing on it. So you'll have
I
a good
saw
laugh
that.
at
I
my
joined, and I
yeah.
thought that was really hilarious. You were like, I don't even know what this is.
I'm just like I'm on the rules and announcement page.
Yeah.
I'm just posting art.
People
It's
have
the
been
Wild West.
chatting for like a week already, and you're like, oh, what's this?
Yeah, I had no idea. I opened this whole thing. I'm like, wait a second. I felt like I didn't know there was an extra room in my apartment.
That's right.
So yeah, I was just kind of lost. But so you join that and laugh at me at my because apparently I'm 80 years old. I didn't know that.
Well, yeah. I mean, Superhero has been around since the 50s. You're at
That's what
least
I'm
80.
saying. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Yeah.
you've been good during the gray.
Moisturize, baby.
That's right.
That's it.
And on that note,
Exactly.
all right, dude. Well,
Oh,
thanks for coming on, and
my pleasure. My pleasure,
and
Chris.
yeah, can't wait to talk to you some more. Take care.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, bye.
Peace.
Join my Patreon to see my work before anyone else, plus score physical sketchbooks, mini comics, and commissions delivered right to your door, and reading my new books, Something Seems Off and Three-Headed Pigman, as they are made. Go to my website to order original art, commissions, and my books, Lost Angels, Spectral: A Showcase of Fear, Chaotic Neutral, and more. Gray Matter Drip, The Art of Chris Anderson, is available now from Cosmic Lion Productions. Here are the upcoming conventions I'll be at the time of this recording. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. It helps spread the word. Thanks.